Today I'm going through the unboxing, build and first ride of these rollers, the Galaxia rollers from Tacx. These will be the first set of rollers I've covered here on YouTube, and I'm keen to see what they're all about. The existing set of rollers that I've used in the past for race warm-ups, leg speed work and easy recovery days are static rollers. They just sit on one spot, flat rollers, and they take a bit of skill and concentration to keep on top of, literally on top of, if not you fall off. These ones have a few extra features that I was keen to check out, hence why we're looking at these today. First of all, they've got wheels on the front, and they've got a little device movementy thing here. That's not a wheel, that's just a little swing arm that allows the unit to move back and forward as you pedal the bike and surge forward a little bit. And the rollers themselves are a little concave to keep you centered on the rollers. Those two things should really help with the experience of riding rollers indoors, so I'm keen to check it all out. I have had a few questions asking why rollers aren't as popular as standard trainers. I think there's a few reasons for that. First up, it takes a certain set of skill to be able to actually get on a bike and ride confidently on one of these. I've seen confident cyclists get on a set of rollers and they look like a beginner. They almost need training wheels, so it's a different skill set. Reason being is the way the bike handles on a set of rollers is very different to outdoors. Outdoors, your bike steers with the front wheel, the rear just follows along, and it's like riding a bike. Indoors, not so easy. The front wheel will turn and sway, and the rear wheel will also move almost not independently, but a little differently. It's almost like those articulated trucks you see, or buses with the joint in the middle. Things turn a little differently, so it's a skill set you have to learn, but once you've learned it, it's like riding a bike on rollers. Next up is the concentration level required. On my existing rollers that I have with the flat rollers on top, if you're just watching a movie and you just happen to, you'll fall off. It takes a lot of concentration, almost 100%. If you get good, you can probably dial that back to 95%. You may be able to grab a drink without thinking, but there's a lot of concentration involved in riding these things. The concave rollers on this might help. We shall see today though. And thirdly, I think it's a different kind of training on rollers. A lot of rollers don't offer a lot of resistance whatsoever. So even in the 5311, you can spin right up and you'll only be putting out probably 250 watts of power. That's not really enough for a lot of people going FTP or over for sessions. And your center of gravity changes a little bit given you're not moving anywhere. So if you're on a set of TT bars and all your weight's on the front, when you're diving right down, things get a little bit sketchy on rollers. So you're not gonna be able to do full TT efforts and full all-out sprints. I mean, I'm talking all-out sprints. You'll just be falling off these things straight away. Some people can do it. The majority of us, we have to tame it back a little bit. So with all those negatives, why would we even bother with rollers? Well, they're super portable. Pro teams, track teams use them a ton. They're easy to move around, they're simple, and they just work. You can put your bike on top in full race get-up, race wheels, disc wheels, track tires, pumped up to 200 PSI, you name it. Sitting on the top of these, you get your warm-up done on that bike, bang, straight out for your race. They're also a neat skill set to have. If you think you've ticked all boxes and you're looking for a challenge, get yourself a set of rollers, learn how to ride them, then learn how to ride them no hands. They're also a cheap option for a second trainer, so if you or your partner or your kids want to ride at the same time indoors, a set of rollers might be the way to go. And the reason I think rollers are still on the market and still being sold today comes back to why we started riding bikes in the first place. It's fun and it's a massive sense of accomplishment once we get up and rolling. So before I go through the unboxing of this unit here, I found a user review left over on wiggle.com, which is brilliant. It sums up the process that people go through when they first try rollers. They've listed their sessions 1 through 5 and their progress. I'll read them out. Session 1, terrifying. Managed about 10 seconds without holding onto a wall. Yep, that's pretty much what happened. Session 2, still terrifying, but managed to hold minutes at a time without having to clutch and hold something for dear life. Session 3, more at ease, able to ride with only brief support at the start and finish, including some one-handed riding. That's brilliant. So you can see the progression right there in just this user review. Session 4, they're still stopping to take a drink. And session 5, wouldn't use anything else. Brilliant, you can see the progression there of just 5 sessions on a set of these. They've gone from being absolutely terrified to a massive sense of accomplishment. Okay, enough story time, let's get unboxing. I managed to disassemble the box rather than open the box. Either way, job done, and done very thoroughly. Contents of the box there, you can see the feet, the rollers. That's really about it. Okay, so we have the side legs, manuals, the cables and bolts, and the 3 rollers for the unit. I know it's out of character, but I will recommend to read the manual thoroughly here because you have to measure your bike, the wheelbase, and adjust the rollers accordingly. Wheelbase on my bike comes out at exactly 1 meter and that is setting number 6. So here's the little modules you have to change the springs in for the length of the unit. Okay, position number 6, and they're a little tricky to get back in play here, so you have to sort of poke them down and bang, they're in play. Okay, next up, this is a little bit out of order. As I said, read the manual, like I didn't, but here's the trick. Make sure the loop is on the rear roller, which is a bit counterintuitive because the loop goes around the front 2 rollers, but you'll see why in just a few moments. So bolting on the rollers, straightforward process, and then adjusting them from both sides as the final tighten. Okay, now here's why you put it on the rear, because when you go to expand the thing, you flip it around to the front too, and then we pull the unit out. It locks into play, and happy days once you pull that little cable over. It is very stretchy, so it's not too hard to get done. Okay, there we have it. Flipping over the unit, making sure it's on level ground. You can see the little swing arms there have to be flat and straight up and down, so when you stand on it, you've got that range of motion. There we have it, build process done. First ride done and dusted on the Gilexia rollers. Hot tip for the first time you get on rollers, make sure the bike's in the big ring because high wheel speed means better balance, and also have something to step up on so you can throw your leg over the bike and clip in much easier as you get rolling. The ride feel itself was very familiar to me because the roller size, which determines sort of how it feels, was the same as my other rollers, but that concave came in very, very handy. The bike did want to center rather than just sort of wander off to the side. So I was even going no hands there for a second, and the front wheel kept straight and the rear wheel was stable in the middle. As there's very little inertia in the system on rollers, you do have to pedal over the 12 o'clock and pull through the 6 o'clock. So you are pedaling through your dead spots a little bit, and I think this contributes a lot to smoothing out your pedal stroke. The forward and back motion of the unit itself that I was keen to check out was awesome. It actually felt more natural than the rollers that were stuck in place, and you didn't feel like you're going to pop over the front wheel or jump off backwards. That was really handy. That's a thumbs up from me on that. I did pull out a measuring tape, and it's about 2 to 2.5 inches of movement back and forward, which is really all you need. The Lama Lab test is set up around testing smart trainers with erg mode and power accuracy. These things don't have power or erg mode, so I'm going to have to come up with a different protocol for the Lama Lab test for rollers. What I've got today is the data collected from a small ramp test. Jumping over to Garmin Connect, I have a speed, power, and cadence curve from a test that I've done with, this was in the 5311, GP4000 tyres, 25mm, pumped up to 90 PSI. Your mileage will definitely vary. They're the variables that I used for this speed and power curve that we have here. As I was saying earlier in the video, 250 watts is pretty much where you'll hover, maxing out these units at any usable cadence. So what we can see here is I jump up to, let's go around 206 watts there is 88 RPM in the 5311, and that's 54k now, so those wheels are moving quite fast. That's only 206 watts of power. I think the upper limit for roadies would be around 110 RPM. Look, your mileage will vary depending on your training and the type of rider that you are, but for me it's always well below 110 RPM. That was only supplying a resistance level of 279 watts. So as I was saying earlier in the video, these units top out at around 250 watts sweet spot. So the Lama Lab test at the 200 watts and then up to 220 watts was fine, but those 300 to 400 in the sprints, it just couldn't handle it. This is not what the unit's for. and continuing the ramp test until my legs almost fell off, spinning 147 RPM. It was applying 471 watts. But look, 147 RPM, that's not really a training zone for anyone. That's just a bit of fun, and I didn't fall off. With the resistance there topping out at around 470 watts at epic RPM, it kind of gives an indication that epic sprint work and other subtle hard efforts are going to be quite difficult to hit. And you've got the balancing act as well. If it's a skill you've got and you can do it on these units, great. But these units don't really go head to head with other smart trainers where you're locked in and you can just rip out sprints until you almost collapse. Onto my summary of these rollers. That forward and back motion and those concave rollers, definitely a thumbs up and definitely an improvement over my current rollers that I have. As mentioned, these don't go head to head with a direct drive trainer or any smart trainers, but they are really, really fun to learn. So if you can get a hold of a set of these rollers, if you want to purchase them, pricing here, $250 US, under €200, around 200 UK pounds. So if you can get a hold of these rollers, even borrow a friend's set, jump on, learn the skill, and let us know how you go. Okay, thanks for watching.